The reason that Wall Street hates to see Ripple having a national trust banking charter is twofold. One, because it puts them under the same level of scrutiny as the other banks and
Hmm.
whatnot. So they can't claim that XRP and Ripple are playing by a different rule. No, they're playing by the same rules and the highest level of scrutiny of the United States government from multiple different regulators now. So that's the first thing is that we have a digital asset. We've got a stable coin. We got all this and you don't, but we're under the same jurisdiction.
Hmm.
Now, the other thing about Wall Street that they don't like about Ripple is that Ripple is solving this payments problem. And this payments problem, right, is one of the biggest moats that banks sit up on. They make so much money off of fees for transfers and international wires and all this stuff that they get to charge because they can, because they're the only ones with the
Yeah.
banking charter.
Yeah, you have to.
And so, they're going to all kind of form a little bit of a cartel around, well, this is how much we're going to charge for this. This is how much, we're cool with that, right? And meanwhile, like the cost, for instance, to send mail is going to be pretty much the cost.
It's fixed. Yeah.
And it's because it's this physical thing. Whereas with money, it gets a lot harder to determine,
It's
like,
arbitrary.
okay, it's arbitrary. And it's like, well, I need this money to be there,
Yeah. So what's the
right?
true market
So
for that? It's almost infinite, right?
it's almost infinite, right? And so when you have a system that can transport money from one place to another instantly and for negligible fees, then everything gets rewired. And the incentive is to move toward that system. The incentive is for everybody to move toward that system.
Hmm.
So that's for all the fintech companies, obviously the banks, even governments. Eventually, are going to be looking at how do we settle trade in the most effective way using whatever distributed ledger, blockchain technology, any technology that's going to make this easier and better.
That's such a really good point to understand from across the board of the things we're talking about here, especially with like ETH, that whole narrative of say digital oil. If ETH is the underlying infrastructure where all of these things are taking place, that's like the burning mechanism of having to use gas fees to facilitate that transaction is basically explaining what Keith just said there. And so then if you hold the underlying asset that is being burned all the time, and the more transactions that are going on, typically the more valuable it's going to be.
So I was talking about this whole situation with why Wall Street hates Ripple, right? They hate
Mhm.
XRP, they hate it. And another big reason, so the first thing was the $100 trillion plus payments industry, okay,
Mhm.
and getting rid of that. Same thing with the FX market. If Ripple's XRP is actually used in the Nostra Vostra accounts where you're getting rid of pre-funding, then you've eliminated a huge industry, which is the whole exchange even of foreign currencies potentially, and they just like own that business. The second thing is the concept that they have the stablecoin called RLUSD. Now, the thing about this is that now that Ripple has a national banking charter, this actually really changes the game for the stablecoin side of the business too. Because what they can do now that they're very native in the space, they can create their own stablecoin, right? Then now they don't have to park their treasuries at another bank, right? So Tether, on the other hand, if they're a stablecoin issuer, every time they issue a stablecoin, they have to back that stablecoin one to one with treasuries. Those treasuries, if I'm not a bank, I have to have those treasuries at a bank.
Mm.
Okay. So that's going to provide business to the banks. Whereas otherwise, if I am the bank, I get to custody my own treasuries. And that is the power of Ripple having their own banking charter. So that plus this G Treasury thing that they've created, where they're trying to become the first XRP Treasury company. And then you have the prime brokerage that they just purchased. So Ripple being a bank means that they're going to be able to use their stablecoin to settle transactions across potentially every vertical
Mm.
and actually be the one who is the bank for where all the treasuries that sit backing those stablecoins one to one. So it really opens the door for Ripple becoming this major player in the center of all of global financial infrastructure. And then XRP Timster said, XRP working towards being the hub and spoke model with XRP in the middle. Right. And so in the video that I put out most recently, I kind of walked through like, so technically RLUSD and their stablecoin business needs to be established first. Because what I understand now, the way that I started looking at that as soon as they actually launched a stablecoin, because a lot of us, me rather, I was like, I didn't see why you needed a stablecoin. I thought that like you would just use XRP to settle all these transactions back and forth. But the way that I look at it now is that you need to digitize and tokenize the currency first. And once you've done that, then you can settle all of these currencies over the XRP ledger because the money's actually on the XRP ledger.
Mm.
Could be wrong, but that's kind of how I look at that.
Yeah, if you cover all your bases to facilitate all the things that need to be done and you can handle almost all of it, like that gives you so much leverage.
Right. And so speaking of so Wall Street hates Ripple, da da da. Well, maybe nowadays, I think things are about to start to flip flop. Okay. So in November this year, Ripple actually raised around $500 million from major Wall Street players, including the largest market maker in the world called Citadel and another company called Fortress Investment Group. And they valued Ripple. Okay. Ripple's just doing tons of up rounds at $40 billion. Okay. So that kind of changes everything because the largest market maker in the world, um, let me see what I was going to say. The largest market maker in the world, um, wanting to own Ripple, okay, says that there's probably some use case for how XRP could be used to be settled in transactions. All right.
Okay, well, I'm just gonna say, like, from my how I interpret that is that okay, if now Wall Street was their enemy, and now Wall Street seemingly is on their side or involved in the game, that increases the chances of success.
100%. Right. So now the incentive is turned around where Citadel wants Ripple to be successful. Okay, so now they're not incentivized to try to fight them. It's like, okay, well, actually, if XRP can be used and Ripple's RLUSD can be used in the settlement of transactions, we're going to benefit from that. And as a market maker, what am I constantly doing back and forth all day? I'm making transactions. So by the milliseconds, millions and millions of transactions per day.
Mhm.
And moving billions and billions of dollars around every single day. So if XRP, Ripple's, RLUSD is the other thing to think about here, are being used in all of these transactions, then that could be massive for the entire Ripple company first, and then eventually maybe for XRP. Another reason that Wall Street might start to love Ripple and XRP is because of these XRP ETFs.
Mm.
So 30 days in a row, apparently, you had spot XRP ETFs logging net inflows since their launch in November 13th, far outperforming Bitcoin and Ethereum products. So um, there's a lot of demand potentially for these ETFs. I'm imagining that this can't be purely uh, retail driven, right? Like we're talking about ETFs here. And a lot of people that I think are in the XRP, they've been owning it. They've been buying it elsewhere. Why would they all of a sudden be like, oh, I want to go buy an ETF? Like, I don't think so. I think that's potentially institutional demand that there is for this XRP asset. And so, anyways, crazy stuff there. If Wall Street can continue to launch these ETFs and they get good trading volume, well, then they make money from this whole phenomenon. So once again, trying to see the ways through which the script is being flipped. These companies starting to buy into Ripple, starting to potentially own XRP, and at that point, the entire incentive gets flipped, and all of a sudden, you've got all these banks that are potentially holding XRP that are going to be very happy if the price of that XRP goes up.
Mhm.
And in general, right, like Ripple has been selling XRP over the counter since almost inception. So who is buying that XRP?
Mhm.
Institutions must have been buying that XRP. And at that point, once again, once I'm on the inside of the game,
Yeah, it changes. And there's more and more of these ETFs coming through, and I think it's crazy how a little bit of stall in momentum can really shift sentiment, right? Like where how quickly people go from super bullish to very bearish when the underlying fundamentals haven't changed is always something that's very interesting to watch from a social standpoint.
Hey, you made it to the end of the clip. That means you're probably enjoying this. And if so, just know that you can catch us live every Tuesday and Thursday at 12 p.m. Eastern. And if you want to see the full version of this episode, you can click the link in the description down below. Otherwise, YouTube thinks that you will enjoy this next.